Hi and hello everyone. Welcome to our MOxOR podcast, and that's podcast with a cough. And we're here to talk about us, about our experiences, and to share our thoughts and interests in the world today, then, and as well as then. We'd like to start today with a little intro session for you to tell us where we've come from, where we'd like to take this podcast, and where we see you on this journey with us. So to begin, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Rowena Abdul Razak. I'm currently a DPhil student at the University of Oxford, where I work on Britain and Iran. So I look at the historical relationship between Britain and Iran. And while I was there, I made a really, really good friend who will introduce himself now.
Hello everyone, my name is Azfar. I'm a recent graduate, even though I haven't actually done the graduation ceremony. Thank you,
You've
COVID-19.
graduated.
Yeah, thank you, of Oxford. I did a Master's of Philosophy in Oriental Studies, majoring in Islamic Studies and History, focusing on same-sex subjectivities in pre-modern Islam, particularly Aleppo during the 16th century. So that's on Islam and homosexuality, basically.
Wow. Topical.
Yeah.
Very topical.
And it's June now. While we are recording it, it's Pride Month.
I know it is. Happy
Yeah.
Pride.
Happy
Salam
Pride,
Pride
everyone.
Mubarak.
Pride Mubarak, everyone.
Pride Mubarak, everyone. And yeah, we met in Oxford. Actually, we met just before you started your MPhil, and we've been friends ever since. It's been great getting to know you, and I've really
Oh,
enjoyed our conversations, and I've really learned from you. And
oh,
that's one of the reasons why we wanted to start this podcast, is because every time we had a conversation, I was always learning. I was always learning new
same.
things. You made me think new thoughts and new avenues, and I thought we could share that.
Maybe we would talk
And
for
that's,
hours.
yeah, we would talk for hours
Yeah,
about
yeah.
everything under the sun. And that's one of the reasons why I thought it would be so nice to share
Yeah,
this
from
conversation.
fashion to Islamic history to like current events
Exactly.
to politics to the economy. We were like, and then one day we decided we
We were
really need to
covering
do a
it all.
podcast. Yeah, we need to do a
We
podcast.
do.
Yeah, and share with the rest of the audience rather. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the whole concept of MOxOR.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about this logo that you and I designed.
Yeah.
I think it really captures. It was something that
Ro drew
we.
it. Ro
I
painted
drew it.
it. I saw that
I did.
she's
I
great
did.
at illustrations, and I decided, Ro, you need to do our logo. You need to do our logo.
Thank
You need
you.
to capture what is us, in a nutshell, basically.
I
You
mean, you're
know.
clear. And the thing is, what's wonderful is that we're both the figures in the picture. We're both the
Mm-hmm.
reclining femme fatale from the Orient, and as well as the scholar. I think that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
us in a nutshell. And
Mm-hmm.
the main thinking behind this painting was I wanted to try and capture these Orientalist style of art that emerged in the 19th century, and where the West would try and visualize the Orient in a particular way. The beautiful colors, the sort of watercolor effect of it, so it seems very ethereal, which I really liked. Even though it was completely inaccurate, well, not completely inaccurate, but quite inaccurate, it was still this kind of
Mm-hmm.
concept that really interested me, and
Mm-hmm.
so that was
It
the
is the
thinking behind
exotic
it.
concept of the Orient, basically,
Exactly.
that captures the Western, artistic eyes during that
That's
time.
right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And
And
we'll get into
unsurprisingly,
that.
yeah, and unsurprisingly, it's still the same thing. It's not much has really
It's
changed.
right.
Not much has
No,
really
it's still the
changed.
same. No,
Yeah.
we're still looking at things from a very Orientalist perspective. I mean, if we look at the
Mm-hmm.
media, movies, music, even the concept of the Orient is still very much prevalent in Western concept in the way that it was in the 19th century. It's just packaged differently now, you could argue. But that's one of the many, many topics we'll be discussing, so let's not get into that right now. But back to the picture. So I like the juxtaposition of the Radcliffe camera with some palm trees. I think that also captures a bit of us. Sort of, we have this very privileged, actually, Oxford education, but at the same time very much grounded in our Malay identity of palm trees and coconut drinks by the beach. You know, so this kind of two
And
worlds
also
not
the Rehan.
colliding but meeting. Sorry?
Yeah, and also the Rehan that I see that you drew me with. Um, is it the Quran? Are you trying to draw the Quran?
Exactly.
Or is it the
I
Muqaddam
mean,
rather?
it's a very Mukaddam version of it. Exactly. It's not. I don't know what that is. I mean, it could be the. I mean, I tried to get the nice Quran table in there as well. I mean, it's very conceptual.
Also, I love that you drew
So yeah.
us being white because that's exactly how a Westerner, would draw the Orient, basically, with alabaster skin
Yes, very white.
and stuff, yeah, with
Exactly.
blonde hair.
I tried to go with some. Exactly. Well, actually, I think that was meant to be a scarf
Oh,
underneath,
okay.
but then now,
Oh,
yeah, it's actually more of a scarf. But I think
okay.
it's come out a little bit blonde. I tried to go a little bit darker with the left reclining figure, but it's
Mm-hmm.
maybe it was difficult. Let's say yes, but yes, I tried to capture all of that.
Okay.
So that's
And what about the
that's our
name?
logo. The name, okay, the name
Yeah.
is interesting. I mean, the X there is for. I think we were talking about
Oxford,
this
definitely.
once about X symbolizing the
Yeah.
unknown and the enigma, which I
Mm-hmm.
really like because I really am drawn to the X. You know, you think of Malcolm X as this figure that we don't, who tried to rebrand himself, and I think that's very central to identities, that we're always changing our identity, we're always evolving. So that's what the X symbolizes. And more, maybe you can talk a little bit more about more, Azfar.
Well, I wanted to capture because both of us, I don't know whether we've mentioned this, both of us are in the Oriental Institute in Oxford.
Oh yes,
So,
the big thing
like you
there.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, that this is just a whole, idea, the whole premise of it for this podcast. So the Mo was the name or derogatory label used by the Europeans for the Arabs, basically, whether they are
Mm,
North Africans or
exactly.
whether they are Levantines, which didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to both capture the fact that we are Malays as well, and the fact that we are Muslims, and also the fact that we are both Oxonians.
Mm.
So it makes sense for it to be
Mm-hmm.
MOxOR.
No, no,
Interestingly,
absolutely.
we wanted to call ourselves the Dodo podcast because you get what I mean. It makes sense for being,
Yeah, I know
being
it's
Malay in Oxford is like being the Dodo. But then there was
a little
another,
bit. Yeah.
podcast named the Dodo. Yeah, and we didn't want to, talk just
Yeah,
about
so
evolution. So there you go. That's the name.
to be honest, I mean, I mean, Dodo was fun, but I actually like MOxOR a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more, I have to say. And because when you mentioned more, I think it made so much sense because, I mean, you think about Othello, Shakespeare's Othello, as the ultimate Moor, this
Mm,
dark, mysterious figure, and that's just sort of stayed in the consciousness, and that's how we perceive Arabs, as the other, and that's not really
mm,
changed, which is quite
mm-hmm.
interesting. So I like that you chose more, and MOxOR just makes a lot of sense, and as you said, it captures who we are. But let's
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about the Oriental Institute, one of the few places in this world that still has the Oriental in the name very clearly.
This is
So
the
I did
most
my
beautiful
undergraduate
building
at.
in all of Oxford.
It is, yeah, it's a horrendous buildings, 50s nightmare. So I'm a graduate of SOAS, and as you know, SOAS, I did my undergraduate there, I did history at SOAS, and as you know, it's the School of Oriental and African Studies, born from colonialism. But SOAS has been very careful to stay away from its Oriental roots, or not even stay away, but sort of acknowledge it, but really reject it at the same time. So SOAS is quite a it's a very left wing, very alternative university, and I learned a lot there.
Extremely
It really,
left wing. It is
really
extremely,
left wing.
yeah, it is
Really
known
left
for
wing.
being left wing, yeah.
Absolutely, and there it's highly Marxist, very very. I mean, it was a great place to um, to, to to study. I was very fortunate, and when you arrive, they give you two books, no matter what
Oh,
course you're studying.
interesting.
They always give you two books: Orientalism by Edward Said,
Of course, I knew it.
and
I knew.
of course,
Why do I know
of
that?
course.
Why
That
do
is
I
the
know
first
that?
book. It's so funny because that is the first book they give to you.
So
It's
funny.
Orientalism by Edward Said. And then the other book they give to you is Imagine Communities by Benedict Anderson. These are the two books
Of course.
that you
Of
get
course.
upon arrival.
What else would they
So
give you?
everything-
Exactly. Yeah.
What else? Is that everything that you knew about you, just chuck it out the window. We're just going to rebuild. In contrast, arriving at the
To the
Oriental
Oriental
Institute
Institute in
it
Oxford.
was the Oriental Institute in Oxford. It was just completely different. They have embraced the Orientalism of the 19th century and just stuck with it. There is
They
no
are
debate.
very proud of the Oriental.
They
yeah,
are very
there is no
proud
debate
of
that
the
they are very proud of
Orientalist.
it.
Orientalist.
Some of the
Absolutely, and there is no debate.
professorship titles have been there since almost the beginning of Oxford, basically. So they are very proud of their heritage, which essentially is Oxford and Cambridge. They're very proud of their heritage.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
Cambridge did manage to change their Middle Eastern Studies or Asian and Middle Eastern Studies department from the Oriental Institute to the Asian and Middle Eastern Institute. So Oxford could have done the same, but they choose not to. Chicago University could have done the same as well, but they choose not to.
Tried.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
I didn't know
absolutely.
that.
It's one of those weird things. There was a debate a couple of years ago. I was there when the OI was thinking about this, about changing the name from Oriental to something like Cambridge. And as you rightly pointed out, the example of Cambridge was brought up, and they were like, no, this is our heritage. This is who we are. We're not going to change. Sorry, I don't remember if there was a vote, but it was certainly a discussion among the faculty board, and they just didn't budge. And even though there were so many arguments to change the name, they just wouldn't, because of tradition, because of that.
So there was a petition, and then they had a debate, and then
I don't remember the details, I have to admit,
Okay.
but something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, it was a debate, but it just was not talked about. And again, currently with the Roads Must Fall campaign, I feel which has really gained so much traction, and I'm very impressed by the success that campaign has had. There's just been no similar campaign for the Oriental Institute, which
I'm not
is
surprised.
something that I think we will also discuss about MOxOR, just to bring it back to a bit about us as well. I think these are in fact one of the many things that we would like to bring to MOxOR. That's just a little glimpse into the kinds of topics we'd like to discuss, and they're not easy topics. I mean, sometimes we'll talk about fashion. I mean, that's always fun. But sometimes, and most of the time, I think we'll delve into these really tough topics of what's going on in the world and how does that impact us. How can we bring our perspective onto those current topics as well? I think that's what we want to share with you every week, hopefully. And I think it's important to have that kind of representation in mainstream media, especially being Malay. And being Malay is such a complex thing. I mean, being in Malay, where I'm from in Malaysia, is very different. You just cross the causeway into Singapore, where you're from, Azfar. They're just two completely different things. And then when we leave our region and come to the United Kingdom, it's another completely different issue. I mean, you've seen this. If you mark your race, so what are we labeled as?
We are an other. So if
And
you're gonna
other.
apply
It's
to
Asian.
yeah, if you're gonna Asian
Asian
other, yeah, if
other.
you're applying to
Asian
Oxford,
other.
you are under Asian other because we are that little, or not even
Yeah.
we are negligible basically. We are a negligible race
Yeah.
in Oxford. In fact,
It's complicated.
during my time when I first enrolled, you were the only Malaysian. I remember there Malaysian. There was a couple of Chinese Malaysian, but you were the only Malaysians, and that's how we become friends because Malay
Yeah.
solidarity.
And exactly. And the thing is, it's very complex. And the Malaysians, they were there in Oxford, but they were not really in the humanities. They were always either in engineering or sciences. So in that field, and there've been some who are very successful, but in the humanities, they're very few. So it was actually quite
And
refreshing
the rest
to meet
are
you.
in Oxford Brooks. Remember? So
Oxford Brooks,
majority
exactly.
majority of the Malaysian are in Oxford Brooks, which is not really part of Oxford University. It used to be part of Oxford University, but because there's so little Malaysians in Oxford that the student activities just usually combine between Oxford University and
Yeah.
Oxford Brooks University. But that's how
That's
how
right.
a little
That's true.
Malaysians are that And we are also
And
both
that's
from the
true.
same college, St. Anthony's College.
Yes, we're both from
What?
St. Anthony's College. Yay, yay. One of the few graduate colleges in Oxford. And it was also, I felt quite welcome there. I mean, there are some issues with St.
Same.
Anthony's, but some of it reminded, because it was quite a diverse college, it was actually quite welcoming.
It is the most
in many
international
ways.
college in Oxford. That's
It is.
like
And you
statistical
were,
fact, yeah.
and you were the first Malay
Yes,
president.
I was. Yeah,
of
I was very
St.
shocked to hear that.
Anthony's. Yes,
First
and you were
Malay
the
student
first
president.
Malay, and I was very proud. I was like, well done. Well
Oh
done,
gosh,
well
such
done
a
you.
long time ago.
Yeah, I was very impressed. But you really had such gravitas and such charm, and you brought everyone together. There were lots
Oh.
of conflicts. Let's not forget.
Oh
but
yeah,
you
it was during
handled them very,
Brexit.
very well.
It was during Brexit. It was during Trump presidency and
It
all
was
of these
quite
issues.
a messy
Yeah.
time, and
It
and
was
Oxford
yeah.
itself is very, very difficult. But yeah, and I think that bringing that kind of voice to the podcast arena would be quite valuable, actually, because we don't have many Malay podcasts in English as well.
Yes.
I don't think there are many, and we're going, and that's another thing that I think we'd like to approach is about being Malay, and what does that mean today? What does that mean in Malaysia? What does that mean in Singapore? What does that mean in the United Kingdom? It's complex. It's very, very complex. So I think on that note, we can, hopefully move on to the next week where we'll talk about more things like this. And I think that we're going to go into a lot of issues, as I said already. Everything from race to Orientalism, to identity, to international relations,
True.
current and before. So on that note, we'd like to say thank you very much for tuning in to our little intro session, and we look forward to sharing with you our thoughts next week. And we've come up with a little nice tagline to say goodbye every day. My pronunciation is not very good, so I'm going to let Azfar say this today.
No, come on, you have to do it now. No,
Okay.
you have to say it. Okay, yeah.
Okay, I will. Okay. I've been pushed to a corner, I will. Masalame, guys.
Masalame.